Hello everyone. Today we will look into writing quadratic equations from its zeros. Zeros are the x values that make the equation, the quadratic equation, equal to 0. We also call them as roots or solutions. Here are our steps for finding the equation from its zeros. First, write the solution as an equation. We know the solutions are x1 and x2, so we have two values, and we will write them as equations. X is equal to x1, x is equal to x2. Second step, we are going to write each equation equal to 0, where x minus x1 is equal to 0 and x minus x2 equal to 0. We get to that point by subtracting x1 from both sides and subtracting x2 from both sides of the equal sign. Now we are going to write the binomials as multiplication. Next, we are going to distribute and combine like terms. If there are fractions, we will multiply the entire equation with the denominator. Now let's see this process in an example. If I have my solutions as x is equal to -3 and 2, first thing I must do is to write them as an equation. And in this problem, we already give them as equations. As my next step, I'm going to rewrite this as small equations that are equal to 0. So if I add 3 to each side, I'll have x plus 3 equals 0. If I subtract 2 from each side, I will have x minus 2 equals 0. Next, I'm going to write these two binomials as multiplication of two zeros. X plus 3 times x minus 2 equals 0. We are at the step that we are going to distribute and combine like terms. Here is my distribution step. X squared minus 2x plus 3x minus 6 equals 0. Now we can combine like terms. X squared plus x minus 6 equals 0 was the equation that we were looking for, and when we factor this equation and then find the solutions should be -3, 2. If we want to do a check step, we can substitute these solutions into the equation and it should give us equal to 0. Here's your you try. Here's a different problem where we don't have a list of zeros. Instead, we were given a graph. On this graph, visually, we're going to identify our zeros. When I look at the graph, I know the zeros are going to be located on the x-axis, and I can find them as the intersection points with the x-axis. Let's list those zeros. X is equal to -1 and +5. After listing them as after listing those zeros, we are going to create small equations. X is equal to -1 and x is equal to 5. That's what the solutions tell us. And let's write them equal to 0. X plus 1 equals 0 and x minus 5 equals 0. We are going to write these two binomials as a multiplication of two zeros. Next, we are going to distribute and combine like terms. X squared minus 5x plus 1x minus 5 equals 0. Combine like terms. X squared minus 4x minus 5 equal to 0 is our equation. there is one more problem we need to address here. After finding the final equation, we realize that the graph is looking down. If a graph is looking down, that means the leading coefficient must be negative. But when we wrote our equation, our leading coefficient was not negative. So we are going to make our leading coefficient negative. In order to make the leading coefficient negative, I'm going to multiply my entire equation with a -1. That way I will have negative x squared plus 4x plus 5 equals 0 as a true representation of the graph of the parabola. Here's your u-try. At the end of your equation, determine whether you would need to multiply the entire equation with a negative or not to make the leading coefficient negative. Remember, a parabola that opens up will have leading coefficient positive. A parabola that opens down will have a leading coefficient negative. Let's look at a different example. If your zeros include fractions, we can still follow the same format. Our solutions are -2 and 1.5, and if I subtract and add values on the right side of the equal sign to make it equal to 0, I will have x plus 2 equals 0 and x minus 1.5 equals 0. At this step, I can write the binomials as a multiplication of two zeros. Now we can distribute x squared minus 1.5x plus 2x minus 3 equals 0. Combine like terms. X squared plus 0.5x minus 3 equals 0. We are going to rewrite the decimal in fraction format so I can clear the denominator. And I'm going to rewrite the problem as x squared plus 1/2 x minus 3 equals 0. At this step, all I have to do is to clear the denominator, and in order to get rid of the denominator, I'm going to multiply the entire equation with 2. So our problem will turn into 2x squared plus 1x minus 6 equals 0. So when we see a decimal or fraction at the end, we are going to clear the denominator, so we will try to write every coefficient in whole number style or integer style. Here is your u-try. Your 0 is 0.4, so remember to convert that to a fraction. You may choose to simplify. That's pretty much it. In the class, we will review these topics again. Make sure to bring your questions.